The top 5 ritual story that opens a door you can't close. Emily's scream shattered the dark. The circle of candles around her flickered violently as she stumbled backward, eyes wide, her flashlight dropping and clattering across the dusty basement floor. A freezing gust of air rushed through the room, and the flame in the center candle stretched upward, twisting like a thin black hand reaching for her throat. The others watched in horror as the wall behind Emily rippled, like something was pressing from the other side, trying to break through. "Close it," she yelled, voice shaking. "Close the door." But Kyle just stood there frozen, the printed ritual instructions hanging loosely from his trembling fingers. The candles hissed. The air vibrated with whispers no one could understand. And Emily, whose shaky hand still rested on the old wooden board they found online, was no longer alone. The thing she spoke to was coming through. Just 12 hours earlier, this group of 4 had been laughing more than screaming. The night had started harmless. Pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, video games blaring in the background. Kyle had been scrolling through forums like he always did, searching for something weird and creepy to try on a boring October night in the small town of Maple Ridge, Oregon. That's when he found it, a ritual known only by a short, unsettling name. The doorway. According to the post, it wasn't a game, it wasn't a seance. It was a conversation, a chance to speak with someone who had passed away. 90 seconds only, and only if every step was followed exactly. The warnings were vague, but they repeated one rule again and again. You must close the door before the silence ends. Kyle joked it was probably some Reddit prank, but Emily, whose mom had died last year, didn't laugh. She stared at the screen like it was calling to her, like it was a chance she never thought she'd get again. "Let's try it," she whispered. Mark and Jenna rolled their eyes, but curiosity won. Before long, they were sneaking into the old house at the end of Pinewood Road, the abandoned property where no one lived, where neighbors swore lights turned on by themselves. It was just supposed to be a thrill, a one-night dare, nothing real. But now, the ritual circle wasn't just glowing from candlelight. A dark stain on the concrete beneath Emily's hand began to spread outward like ink in water. Cold crept up everyone's arms. Emily's lips trembled. She wasn't speaking anymore, but the voice coming out of her was still talking. A man's voice. Older, broken, angry. "Emily, move!" Mark shouted, grabbing her shoulders, but she didn't react. Her eyes were rolled upward, white and empty. Kyle finally snapped back to life and reached for her hand to break contact, when the wall behind her cracked open in a loud, splitting sound. Something pushed through, something that wasn't Emily's mom. The light bulb overhead popped, plunging them into darkness. And then, a hand they couldn't see grabbed Kyle's wrist. Kyle screamed and yanked his arm back, stumbling into Jenna. The invisible grip was ice cold, like frozen bone pressing into skin. He couldn't see what held him, but he felt every finger. "Don't break the circle." Jenna cried, but it was too late. The chalk line they'd drawn around the candles was smeared where Kyle's shoe had dragged through it. The basement fell silent. No whispers, no movement, no light, just silence so deep it hurt. Emily collapsed to her knees, gasping like she'd been underwater for too long. Mark fumbled for his phone, his shaky breath loud in the dark. He turned the flashlight on, only for the beam to flicker with static, as if something was standing right in front of it, blocking the light. "Kyle," Jenna whispered, "your arm." He looked. Thick, black fingerprints were burned into his wrist, like soot that wouldn't wipe away. "That's it," Mark said, voice strained. "We're leaving. This is over." He grabbed Emily, who still hadn't spoken a word. She stared at the basement wall, the crack now sealed, like nothing had ever happened. But her eyes weren't right. They weren't focused on anything in the room. It was like she was still seeing the thing behind the wall. Kyle tried to rationalize it. Panic, imagination, anything. It had to be. But when they reached the stairs, the basement door above wouldn't move. Locked from the other side. Jenna pushed. Mark kicked. Kyle threw his shoulder into it. Nothing. Then a whisper drifted down the stairwell, soft and playful. "Knock, knock." Emily's head snapped upward. Her voice came out flat, unnatural. It followed us. Kyle's heartbeat hammered in his ears. He turned around slowly and noticed one of the candles still burning behind him. The flames stretched taller than any fire should, nearly reaching the ceiling, bending toward them like it was aware. Jenna pulled out her phone. Try and call someone, anyone. No signal. The whisper returned. Closer now. Let me in. The basement door shook violently, as if something was ramming into it from the other side. Fast, hard, desperate. Jenna screamed and backed away. How do we close it? Kyle demanded, grabbing the crumpled printed ritual steps. But half the page was gone, ripped during the chaos. All that remained was one final line, smeared but still readable. If the silence breaks before the door is closed, it will find a way through. As if responding to the sentence itself, the pounding on the door stopped. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It listened. They didn't talk. They barely breathed. Then Emily stood up slowly, like being pulled by strings. Her voice was not her own when she whispered. It's not outside anymore. One of the candles behind them blew out by itself. Then another. The last flame twisted, turned black, and went out. Total darkness. And something else breathing with them in the basement. The breathing wasn't theirs. It was heavier, slower, like a large animal standing inches behind them. No one dared turn around. Every instinct screamed that if they looked, they would see something they could never forget. Jenna's voice was a tight whisper. Emily, please say something. Emily didn't blink, didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the place where the last candle had died. And when she finally spoke, the words scraped out like they were being forced through her. It's hungry. Mark grabbed Emily's arm and tried to pull her toward the stairs again, slamming his shoulder into the door once more. His voice cracked with panic. Help! Someone, please. But the house outside was silent. The nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away. They were alone. Kyle stepped back, his phone camera light shaking in his grip. The beam cut through the darkness, and then landed on something that shouldn't have been there. Footprints. Wet, black footprints appeared one by one on the concrete floor, walking toward them. But there was no body attached to them. No figure. Just the imprints materializing out of nowhere. Jenna sobbed, shielding her face. Stop looking at it, Emily said, her voice suddenly calm, too calm. It likes attention. Kyle pointed the light toward Emily. How do you know that? She didn't answer. Her eyes were glassy, her expression distant. Then the basement door creaked. Just a little. Just enough. Mark froze. It's open. Jenna grabbed his wrist. No, don't. But he was desperate. Any exit was worth the risk. He reached for the doorknob, and the door slammed open on its own, smashing into his face and knocking him backward. Standing at the top of the stairs was a silhouette. Tall, thin, its head crooked at an unnatural angle. Pitch black from head to toe, like a hole cut out of the world itself. Kyle's light flickered violently, struggling to keep the figure visible. It didn't move, yet somehow Kyle felt it smiling. Whatever you are, Kyle stuttered, just leave us alone. The silhouette tilted its head further, bone cracking, stretching. Then, knock, knock. It tapped on the wall beside it. A childlike voice echoed through the basement. Let me come down. Jenna screamed. No, don't let it. Too late. The shape dropped to all fours and raced down the stairs, its limbs bending the wrong way as it scrambled toward them with impossible speed. Kyle and Jenna ran. Mark crawled backward, blood dripping from his nose. Emily just watched. The creature rushed straight for Kyle and stopped inches from his face, breathing in his terror. Kyle felt its cold breath brush his skin. It sniffed him. Then, slowly, its head turned toward Emily. Her lips curled into a smile that wasn't hers. A whisper slid from her mouth, but the voice wasn't human. The door is open now. The creature and Emily stared at each other, like they were sharing a private joke. Then Emily pointed Kyle, and the creature lunged. Kyle hit the ground hard as the creature crashed into him. The weight was crushing, yet its body felt like smoke and bone at the same time. He swung wildly, punching through nothing, but cold claws still gripped his shoulders. Mark tackled it from behind, shouting through gritted teeth. His hand slid right through its shadowy form. Yet somehow, the impact forced the creature to stumble. Kyle scrambled to his feet and grabbed Emily's arm. "Snap out of it, please." Emily slowly turned her head toward him. Her eyes were pitch black now, every bit of color gone. She whispered one word, "No." With that, an unseen force shoved Kyle backward, sending him crashing into a stack of rotting boxes. Splitters rained down as he gasped for air. Jenna rushed toward him, tears streaking her face. "We have to close the door. That's the only way." Kyle's pulse thrashed against his skin. "We don't know how." Mark winced, clutching his side. What did the instructions say? Silence. Something about silence. Jenna shook her head. That was the warning. If the silence breaks before the door is closed, it gets in. Kyle stared around the basement. There had to be something. Anything. His trembling hand found a torn ritual page on the floor. But the final steps were missing, ripped away. "We don't have enough," he choked out. Emily's voice, no longer hers, spoke from the darkness. "I can tell you." They all went still. Emily stepped forward. Each movement was jerky, unnatural, like someone learning how to use a body. Her head twisted too far to the side as she smiled. "Someone must stay on the other side of the door and hold it shut." "No," Jenna whispered immediately. "No way. There has to be another way." Emily ignored her. The air around them began to tremble. The creature skittered across the wall, limbs stretched like elastic, waiting. Kyle swallowed hard. Who goes through? Emily's eyes flicked toward the crack in the wall. It had returned, bigger this time, darkness pouring out like smoke. "It chooses," she said. The creature's head snapped toward Mark. He stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, please don't." It lunged. Kyle reacted without thinking. He shoved Mark aside and threw himself into the creature's path. The basement shook as the crack widened into a yawning door of pure black. Cold hands dragged Kyle toward it. His feet dug trenches in the concrete, but there was no ground left to grip, only darkness. "Kyle!" Jenna screamed. "No, don't do this." He looked back, eyes full of terror, but also resolve. If someone has to close it, it's going to be me. In that moment, Emily's real voice broke through, raw, terrified. "Kyle, please, don't leave me alone with it." He gave the faintest smile. "You're not alone." With one final push, Kyle hurled himself through the dark opening. The door slammed shut behind him. A shockwave of silence blasted through the basement. The creature vanished. Emily collapsed. Mark and Jenna gasped for breath, shaking uncontrollably. The wall was whole again. The circle of candles flickered back to life. It was over, or so they thought, because later that night, when Jenna and Mark finally reached home, their phones buzzed at the exact same time. A new voicemail, a known number. They pressed play. Kyle's voice whispered from the other end, weak, distant, like it came from 1,000 miles away. "Don't open the door." Then, "Knock, knock." The voicemail ended.